my top 3 investments to guarantee huge long-term wealth. Now, getting rich. Everyone wants to get rich, and most people want to get rich overnight. But realistically, the truth of the matter is that is not how it's achieved. The truth of the matter is getting rich, becoming truly wealthy is usually a long-term game plan. Now, my strategy is a long-term plan with a low-risk strategy, and it's proven to be very lucrative. So before we get into the video, who am I and why am I the person to explain to you my plan and explain my successes? Well, my name's Future Investments. I'm an avid investor and I'm very passionate about having multiple investment vehicles in my portfolio, purposely for the benefit to have diversification, to not only spread my risk, but to increase my potential chance of yielding greater results. So let's get straight into the episode and talk about my top 3 long-term wealth investments to guarantee true richness. Okay, so starting off at number 1, precious metals. So that's the start of my journey. Number 1 in my portfolio has to be precious metals. Now, why precious metals, specifically gold bullion? Well, for me, gold bullion is the backbone of my investment portfolio. Not only that, but it's a savings account, a safety net, a hedge against inflation, and a wealth preservation device. Now, some reasons to back up this evidence is the fact that gold has increased in the last 2 decades, the last 20 years, by 774.94%. That's an increase in pounds per ounce of £1,645.97. Currently, it's sitting at £1,858.37. I believe soon to break that £2,000 per ounce mark, and then after that, who knows where it could go to. For sure, the sky is the limit. Now, for me, I love precious metals, specifically gold bullion, specifically 24 karat golden Britannias. The reason I like that is because they're the purest gold bullion you can get, and also Britannias in the United Kingdom are capital gains tax exempt, meaning that you're never going to pay any tax upon sale of that item. And that's something as an investor that is very lucrative and special to me, because I want to try and get the best value for money for my investment. Now, the reason I say precious metals is the backbone of my portfolio is because gold has been around for over 4,000 years, and at the moment it shows no sign of slowing down, and it definitely doesn't show any signs of not becoming or staying as the wealth preservation device that all the investors use to protect their portfolio. For me, gold is partially looked at as a savings account. I look at it as storing wealth. When I purchase precious metals, I don't even feel like I'm spending capital. I feel like I'm transferring capital money into an asset that is going to preserve my wealth. The reason I say that is because, as we know, gold goes up with inflation, not down. As an example, if you were to have £10,000 or $10,000 and you left it under your mattress, that buying power of that £10,000 or dollars is going to get less and less each year. Whereas if you put that into gold bullion, the chances are it's going to continue going up in value alongside the rate of inflation, which is not only going to preserve your wealth, but it's actually going to increase your wealth at the same time. So it's a real bonus. Again, I look at it as a safety net. I use it to be my backbone. If all else fails, if the economic market tumbles, I look at precious metals as my safety net, because we've seen time and time again when there's economic turmoil in the market, precious metals tend to spike in value. People tend to run to precious metals and store their wealth. It's such a strong wealth preservation device and a security net. So for me, coming in at number 1 is precious metals, specifically gold bullion. Now moving on to number 2. What is it? Well, it's index funds. Now, why are index funds number 2 in my top 3 investment vehicle portfolio list? Well, for me, they're safe, they're easy, and they're fun. The S&P 500 and the FTSE 100 is for me my go-to investments in index funds for building long-term wealth through compound interest. Also, I like to use the benefit of investing through an ISA, which means it's tax-free. You can invest up to £1,666 per month or up to £20,000 a year. Tax-free. For me, again, like I said earlier on, I'm trying to get the best value for money in my investment, and when I can avoid paying that tax through the legal system that is there to be used, I'm absolutely going to take full advantage of that. I also like to dollar cost average my way in. You could argue that index funds like the S&P 500 and the FTSE 100 is a form of savings account. For me, it is, but it's actually more of a wealth building tool. Through the benefit of compound interest and compound investing, through the dollar cost averaging method, you can really build up some great returns through investing regularly into the S&P 500 and the FTSE 100. As an example, the S&P 500 is up 635.27% since its incorporation in 1997. It's proven to have yearly very strong returns, and normally generically is a very safe long-term investment vehicle. For me personally, the reason why I have two sectors in my index funds, such as the S&P 500 and the FTSE 100, I do class them as one collective investment, however, is because I want diversification. The S&P 500 is the United States economy, and the FTSE 100 is the United Kingdom's economy. As we know, the US has the global leading economy in the entire world, and also being a UK citizen, a UK investor, someone that works with the British sterling pound, for me, I have to back my own country and I have to invest in the United Kingdom's economy. So that's why I have a mix of the S&P 500 and the FTSE. I want diversification across two massively leading global sectors, but I also consider them safe. I consider them easy. I consider them fun. You can look at your investment through a long-term plan, and you can really start seeing that compound interest build on top of the money that you put in. It's a really great tool for building wealth over a long-term plan. And if you're somebody that doesn't want to have to monitor it daily, looking at the figures, then an index fund like the S&P or maybe the FTSE 100 could potentially be very, very good for you. It works for me. I like it as a long-term, fun, easy, low risk investment. And for me, in the long-term plan between 15 to 20 years, I'm expecting great returns on my investment. Some really nice yields are already starting to appear, and I've only been investing in the index funds for around 2 years. Okay, moving on to my third and final investment vehicle in my top 3 investments to guarantee long-term wealth is property. Now, if some of you have watched some of my content before, you may have heard me touch on this topic, but I'm a big fan in owning investment property. Now, that is separate, in my opinion, from owning your own house. I would consider that a liability. Now, before you get your pitchforks out, you have to understand the actual definition of what a liability is. A liability is something that will take money out of your pocket, whereas an asset is something that will put money into your pocket. Now, don't get me wrong, having my own mortgage that I live in, my own property, I wouldn't change it. I want my own property. I'm paying down that capital loan and I'm building capital growth and building equity. Having said that, I do think investment properties are on a different side to owning your own property. And for me, it's a big part of my future plan and my portfolio. My goal is to own multiple buy-to-let, interest-only rental properties. You could also make money out of property using the BRR strategy, which is the buy, refurbish, refinance, which is a strategy some people prefer because they don't have to deal with tenants. In that sense, it would be buying a property at a cheaper value. Maybe it needs a little bit of work, spending a wise amount of money on it, and then refurbishing it, refinancing that, and pulling out the equity that you've made from the increase in aesthetic value you've put into the property. But for me, my plan is to use rental properties on an interest-only mortgage where I can accumulate more wealth on a semi to passive income on a dollar cost averaging basis. So month by month, I'm going to be getting that rental income come through regularly every single month, which is again going to generate me more income to then put it back into my precious metals and my index funds and more property. And as you can imagine, the more you get, the bigger that cycle gets and the easier it gets. It's hard. The hardest it's ever going to be is right now. So for me, property is a big one for interest only, passive to semi-passive income, capital growth and building equity. However, with property, there is more risk than the first two investments like index funds and precious metals. You have to consider the potential downsides to it is having negative tenants, not paying rent, refurbishment, and costs to having a property. That's all something you have to take into account. That is my top three investments: index funds, precious metals, and property, not in that specific order, of course. It's a long-term, low-risk plan that absolutely works for me. Having said that, this particular strategy might not suit your financial goals and plans, but for me, it's working very, very well. I've been rather successful and I'm very grateful for the success that I've had. Now, I would have to say, there's a bonus to some of this. If you have watched until the end of the episode, I've got some tips and tricks that I also think you can include to your life, which will help increase your financial wealth. Okay, so the bonus for me is some advice and some knowledge that I've accumulated through being an investor over the last sort of 4 to 5 years. So for me, books, they're absolutely incredible. By increasing your financial knowledge, you can really do some great things for yourself. It doesn't always have to be finance books either. I've read books like The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which is all about mindset. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, about building compound wealth, making regular changes to your life, whether it's finance or things in your life that can have a dramatic change at the end of a long-term period. Or maybe The Courage to be Disliked, a fantastic Japanese book which is all about the courage to be disliked and how to live your life without being in fear of what other people think. Maybe back to the finance books, How to Own the World by Andrew Craig, a fantastic book which is very heavily focused on diversification and holding multiple global sectors around the world. Or maybe you're looking at the property side. Well, a book like Extraordinary Profits from Ordinary Properties by Wendy Whitaker-Large is fantastic regarding HMO properties. Not only that, but you can have side hustles. Side hustles are absolutely beneficial to you because it really does feed that income through alongside your main employment that maybe you're employed by a company until you've become a fully successful entrepreneur where you have semi and fully passive income coming in. So consider having a side hustle. And also massively is networking. I try to surround myself with like-minded people, even people who are more successful than myself, because I can seep so much information and knowledge from those people. It's really beneficial, and normally I think you'll find that those sort of people are happy to share that because they're in a similar mindset. And that brings me on to the end of this topic. Mindset is number one for me. You have to have the right mindset. You have to be positive, a PMA, an optimistic mindset, a positive mental attitude. And with that, everything else will flow into place. So that's been my top 3 investments on building long-term successful wealth. It's worked very well for me and it's continuing to work very well. Having said that, these particular investments might not be fully suited to you, but if they are, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to know. If I've missed any other type of investment vehicles out that work very well for you, definitely let me know. It could be stocks, shares, ISAs, or other investment vehicles. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I've had real fun filming this episode, and I look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. Bye-bye.